Oh, hey. Oh, good morning, Kevin. How the heck's it going?
Oh, it's going great. How are you?
Oh, we are rocking and rolling today. Oh,
I got the lion out there. I didn't see Mark today. Maybe he's
yeah,
running a
yeah,
little
yeah.
late again.
He must be. It's early for Mark, right? He's
It
out in
is.
Seattle or Washington State today, right?
Yeah, he's over on that West Coast area, and boy, but we do appreciate when he gets up and joins us, and how he was putting the lion out there. So, in honor of Mark, I got a lion out there when the roar came up today.
Oh, that's fantastic. So lots going on this week. Excited to have everyone here. I think we're like in a lull with Ignite around the corner here. So
Yeah.
while there's been some announcements, I think we're going to see some big stuff coming out of Ignite. Huh?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. The little bit that I have been getting on social, I somehow seem to be getting away from that somewhat, but maybe I'll get back on. But I have seen some things, some more training announcements. I think Alex Powers put out a blog. I didn't read it yet, but it talked about an end-to-end solution. Let me see if I
Mm,
can find that real quick. I thought the headline was interesting yesterday when it popped up on my feed.
yeah.
I've been a lot of just kind of seeing my feed, but not digging deep into it type of thing. But um, Alex Powers and activities, but there, I think you're right with Ignite coming up. I think there's a little bit more that is, just kind of getting things at steady state, and then whatever is next, we'll hear about there. So maybe it was on Twitter. I'm not seeing it on LinkedIn real quick. I think there
Uh,
was another funny one I shared with you, right? That came up on
uh,
socials lately.
yes, I don't know if anyone's seen this or not, but we're going to go ahead and share this. So this is by Mike Embers. This is absolutely fantastic. I don't if you've seen this or not. I'm going to put a link to his stuff in the link to this. It's going to go into the stream, so do check this out. But this is frankly brilliant. If you listen to this, this is just fabulous.
Waiter, come here. Take my order. They'll be fine. I have a board meeting in an hour. I need you to pull some food for me really quick. I will have the Japanese A5 Wagyu 48 ounce dry aged, cooked medium rare. If it is medium well, I will send it back. Crab with a nice béarnaise sauce on top. Go ahead and do dessert. 2 scoops of gluten-free, dairy-free, grass-fed vanilla ice cream. The raspberry compote, and that's my order.
2 scoops. 2 scoops. Please make sure that has 2 scoops.
Where's my food?
Yeah, when you
30
watch
minutes.
this video a little bit, you
I'm
might
saying,
have to go back and forth after you hear the ending of it. But
Well, and yes, and yeah,
I need you to pull this for me now from the kitchen. Can you just pull this from the kitchen? Pull my steak from the kitchen really fast. No. Go ahead. It's fine.
substitute
I'll
your
wait.
database there for kitchen.
yeah. Well, and it is so funny how while this is real, we also have this general. Well, of course, it's going to take some time to prepare a nice meal, but get some data. Oh, wow.
Got a board meeting in an hour, but go ahead. No, I'll take 30 minutes of that time just waiting. That's great. I read this week that McDonald's went real time with AI. I'm just asking, why can't we be real time if McDonald's is real time with their food? That's my question. Is that too much to ask? Yes. Thank you. What is this?
Thank you. Immediately. There's no delay. There's no pause. It's immediately. What is this? I've got a problem with this. No question whatsoever. Right? Like not a conversation. Not like let's talk through what we're looking at here. None of that. Just what is this? Right? With this.
Yeah.
Back. This doesn't look right. I don't know what's not right about it. That's your job to figure it out. It just doesn't look right to me. I very clearly ordered extra medium, and this is not dyed green at all like I asked. You know what? Don't worry about it. We have no time. I'll just work with what I have. I'm not asking for a whole lot, okay? But here's what I am asking for. The best food in the entire world to be
The best food in the entire world.
delivered in real time to me at
In real time. the best food in the world in real time
My beck and call,
at his beck and call.
and to get it 100% accurate when I order it within my budget of $12. Like,
Okay.
$12.
12 and isn't this so true? This has been just like these things cost money. You don't spend money on projects. They don't get delivered. They don't get delivered right, and then people lose their minds on it. Right?
why is that so difficult? Go back here. Come here.
Like the waiter's got nobody else to talk to, nobody else to, right?
And he clearly just walked away, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, this gets crazy, right?
Yeah. Okay. So where in the dish is the generative AI? Yeah, it was good. It was all right. Ticket. Yes. All right. Whoa. Hold on.
Remember Wagyu A38, I think is what he asked for?
48 ounces.
Yeah, 48 ounces, right?
No. No, I don't have the budget for this. There's no way. Okay, I need you to do two things. I need you to go into that kitchen right over there. I need you to fire about 4 full-time employees to pay for this so that you don't do this again. Number 2, I need you to go.
So you don't do this again. You
Right.
have to fire 4 full-time employees because you did something wrong. You're clearly the one who's a problem here.
To your beef supplier, just go tell them you're not going to pay what they're asking for. It's simple. This is unacceptable. We don't.
It's simple.
It's like, yeah, we're not paying this. Just tell them no.
Just tell them.
Yeah, just this isn't the right amount.
have the budget for this. Budgeted for like $12 with the CFO, and now you're coming to me with this? No, I did not ask you for $1,500 worth of food here. You need to get this figured out. All right, so I'm going to hand this back to you.
Now, substitute in the real conversation, right? Is he wouldn't always be saying the board or CFO. He'd be dropping the names.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I talked to Dave. You know Dave, the CFO, right?
Yep.
We agreed on a budget.
Yeah, it was $12.
Yeah.
Which we know is more than reasonable. We've talked to people; they've eaten for less than $12, so there's no reason we can't eat too for less than $12
and have a 48-ounce Wagyu 38 steak.
Best in the world, on my demand, on my schedule. Yeah.
You go figure it out. I'm going to go to my board meeting. Hey, listen, I do have some good news, okay? I know I've been a little hard to work with here. I have some good news. Our business, me, is so confident when it comes to this stuff that we're going to keep the company going. We'll keep you guys going. It'll all be okay. I don't know if your job's going to be okay. I need you to do a better job, but we're going to be okay. Anyway, all right, I'm out.
Oh gosh. Well done.
Go find that. Like it if you can. I think one of his funniest comments is his first comment on there is shout out to all the data people wanting to like this this video but can't because their business people will see it.
Well, and you know what? Like, wake up. Like, the wake up calls need to occur in this world, and way too often, the people like this don't see it and are protected from that stuff, and then they lose their mind. It's crazy. It is crazy. Oh, that was fantastic. So great share. Yeah. Did you ever see the 7 red lines video?
No, I don't know that I ever saw that.
Let me see if I can find it. Or the expert. We're not gonna play this one. We're not gonna make.
I think I've heard the expert before.
Yeah. Oh, what the heck, Bing? Bing, you're the worst with stuff like this. Hold on.
But also, just to cross promote a little bit, our friends at Explicit Measures podcast they talked about that video as well, and they're going to do a counter one. Maybe they did it already because I'm behind. I'm listening to them about from the business point of view as well. So listen to them for some of the interesting commentary on that video as well. It's getting a lot of airplay lately, but it's good.
So this is the expert. I shared the link down there. We won't listen to this one too, but it's you're an expert. We just need you to draw 7 red lines. Oh,
I think I have seen that.
3 of the lines have to be perpendicular. Perfectly perpendicular to each of them. Like that's not how perpendicular. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and just draw them with red ink or with green ink. We're gonna need you
Yeah.
to draw those with green ink. Oh,
Yeah. Well, you're the
very
expert.
funny.
You figured that out. I mean, yeah, I kind of remember seeing that years ago
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
It is
It's a
pretty
good
funny.
one.
It's another good one to watch.
Now, this is another blog I read this morning. This is fantastic. It did just come out yesterday. I've never seen. Oh my gosh, Abdelghani's before, but this is a solid article about how you do incremental refresh inside of Fabric. So I'm gonna post this in the chat. Do take a look at it. He does a pretty good job here of like running through this, and I read that while I was walking my dog this morning. I'm like, hey, this is pretty good.
Okay, so he's using a combination of data flows and notebooks.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think a lot of people are having some type of expectation that you can just do it within one object type, right? Just data flows or something like that. But that's the beauty of this whole setup, is that it allows you to add in more things, right? If the data flows alone don't allow you to do it, add a notebook into it to supplement it, right?
Right.
Um, it may stretch a little bit of your learning, or you might have to get a teammate to kind of help you, right? And I think that's been a theme of mine since this has come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it's a team. It takes a team, and I get it. Some people work alone, they're in a very small shop, right? But your team is the community. Find these posts, find these ideas, help yourself grow a little bit, talk to a lot of us are on different user groups and take questions during it and stuff like that. So, you have a bigger team, and, you could get around and do almost anything.
Yeah. And that kind of starts to lead us into the topic of today's conversation,
Mhm.
which is another great video that was just put out. When was this? 2 days ago, and I was just really impressed by it and blown away. It's by Advancing Analytics. Simon's got a great video out here about the
Mhm.
medallion architecture, and um, I wanted to dig into this because as people are starting to work in Fabric, they're starting to come in and they're starting to work with lakes for the first time. And Simon here is right. Like,
So,
lakes are new to us, but they're not new to the industry as a whole.
well, hang on a minute here.
All right.
We've been talking medallion architecture. It's
Mm-hmm.
the best way to go. But what does this title say? The medallion architecture doesn't work. Have we been
Uh,
wrong this whole time?
that is right. He is saying that it does not work. It doesn't work.
But watch the video, because and we're going to talk and digest this a little bit. But that's somewhat of a catchy way to market his video. I don't think he's fully saying it doesn't work, but there's ideas, there's things to talk about here, right? So
Well, and I don't want to spoil his reveal here, but watch the video. You'll see how it doesn't work, and yet why some of these components are super important. And we're gonna kind of start to talk about that today. But that gets into what is this medallion architecture that we're talking about, uh, and really, it's that bronze, silver, gold. Layers within our data lake. Now we're gonna do a survey here. Everyone, or not a survey. Everyone, I want you to get ready, and you're going to be typing into the chat in just a second here. Okay, so I see a number of you online. I need you all to get ready to type into chat here. What I want you to do is I want everyone to say what is in the bronze layer. Explain, put in there as quick as you can what data goes into the bronze layer from your current understanding of the medallion architecture. What's in the bronze?
5 words or less, so you could type
Yep,
quickly.
yep, yep. Because go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was going to verbally give my answer, right? From my understanding of this, it's the raw data. But what do we mean by the raw data, right? And I see some things are starting to come into the chat here as well, right? raw data, raw history, the
Yep.
first stuff.
Raw data.
Yeah,
Good.
but the first stuff, I'm laughing at it, but I like that, right? It's the
Mhm.
first place that you're landing data, right?
Yep.
Data dumps, base data. All of these are exactly correct, right?
Yep.
It is. It's the first place. It's going to be your rawest form, right? And
Yep.
raw could take on different meanings depending on
Well,
the source system that you're
hang
getting.
on. We're going to be getting into
Oh
that.
man.
All right. So don't ruin the punchline here, Kevin. Now we're good. Let's talk about silver. What is in the silver layer? Okay. Same thing. Give me just a handful of words or little bits of information. What is in the silver layer?
I'm just reading Joe's comment still from the raw later. Raw means you were emotionally cold to the data and didn't even give it a blanket or a warm meal. Thanks, Joe.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's great. All right, silver. Come on, let's see
Yeah,
what the
so
silver is.
we have things starting to come in. Cleansed
Okay.
data, cleaned and prepped, right? And
Okay.
again,
Yep.
these could be open to interpretation, right? It could
Right.
be just only first validation, right? Or validated, transformed. Sorry, that moved on me while I was reading. Uniformed, segmented bronze data. I like the
Okay.
segmented part of it.
Oh, hang
That's
on.
good too.
Now we're starting to get into it. Cody, enrich business logic with business-friendly names structured to support the enrichment. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's Joe again. Transform data, but not yet ready for prime time. Good. Awesome. I think we're getting good feedback from everyone. It's exactly what we want to see. Now, what's in the gold data? Oh, I like this one.
Yeah, I was just reading that one as well.
Yeah, data cleaning means data types, serial keys, etc., but no joins. Good. I like that. Well, maybe. Yeah, this is gold data. We're entering in the
Yeah, we're
gold
entering
data.
gold. Yeah.
What
Business.
is the gold data in this architecture? Who understands what this is?
So we got a couple things starting to come in.
Business ready data, modeled. Good.
Full model.
Oops. Full model. Yep. Anything else? Best we got.
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's really true, right?
yeah. It may not be your Wagyu A38, but
Oh, and here we go with Cody dropping the big bombs here. Structured to support BI analytical tools optimized for read, not write. For Power BI, this is star schema, right? Yes. Gold layer, you can rely upon stable schema and separate into facts and dimensions and tables. A master data set. Fully enriched, OLTP, fully enriched and cleansed and star schema. Good. All right. And look at this. And Donald's come in with, he prefers the Kimball with the kitchen, the BS, bronze and silver, and the front room being gold.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I guess the point of this is the conversation is while we're kind of talking about this, there's many different interpretations of what is in bronze, silver, and gold. And the problem with calling something bronze, silver, and gold is that it doesn't actually describe the data that's in there, right? Because when we say bronze, we have to then take it to say, oh, it means raw or it means these other things. And Simon went on to point out that advancing analytics has been using a pattern that honestly I like a lot. But they actually break it out into, different sections and different layers and areas, right? So the raw files. And when we say raw files, we mean the truly raw files, right? Like whatever data was spit out of that system, inclusive of error files, right? Files that failed in the write, files that were corrupted. All of those files exist inside that raw layer, right? He then said, okay, but then if you think about it, like we don't want to hang on to that. That some of that stuff is garbage, but we need to keep it for like retention purposes, so we could like error and troubleshoot. Like, why the heck did we get a that raw bad file? When did that happen? Create a ticket, send it to that support team or whatever that source service is, right? So you could have that raw stuff, but then you want to like do just the base level checks. Are these the files that we're supposed to have? Right? Is it a JSON file? Is it a CSV? Right? All of those things. Does it have the right conform schema as we've kind of defined it? And then he said, and then we have like the cleansed and validated. Like, yeah, okay, you know what? We've kind of like scrubbed through. We figured out where there were duplications, all of that stuff. We've made sure that those have been all resolved, and we've put those into these files into like what be kind of like our silver layer.
So, the back into your bronze layer again. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that if I'm pulling in an Excel file
mm-hmm.
and I'm pulling it in on a daily basis or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep a copy of that Excel file, maybe by date, the time that I pulled it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to validate that nobody changed the structure of that Excel file except maybe adding data, right? Again, not changing the structure. That's going to be your second step there.
Yep.
And now, like you said, kind of bring it up a ticket, or you have proof back to the person that said, hey, you changed that. That's why this day it didn't get updated, right?
Right.
I think that, because I mean, we're so often into that type of thing of, so when you're forced to pull something in by Excel file and everybody will swear up and down, oh, we never change the structure, until they do. So,
yeah, which is monthly when they publish it, because they manually create the file.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, sorry. Okay. So back, I just think that kind of emphasizes the point of what you can do by keeping that type of information in there. Maybe not just the system went down, but people issues came up.
Yep. And that's the real value of that raw file. Mm-hmm. And Simon pointed out a great use case for this bronze layer. It's not just feeding silver, but it's detecting problems in your data that could be obscured by moving into the silver layer. Mm-hmm. For example, maybe there's what was his example that he gave in the insurance industry? If there's some like layered fraud going on, that someone has figured out a way to cheat the system, because these types of transactions fold on top of each other as they go into for monitoring. And so they put them in and they do it in a specific way to really hack and trick the system. And then it comes out, and by the time anyone knows about it, like it's all updated and you lose sight of it. Mm-hmm. So for example, I'll throw one out there. This isn't insurance, but this would be like banking. If I'm a bad actor and I'm a teller, or I work at the bank and I say, you know what, this account, nobody's paying attention to this account. Nobody's accessed online. Nobody's doing anything in the account. There's $20,000 into it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the address on the account. I'm going to ship a new debit card, and then I'm going to change the address back, all in the span of an afternoon. Knowing that by the time it gets to the silver layer, it's still going to have that current address, right? If that's how that works, right?
Right.
Like you could detect that type of fraud if you're at the bronze layer. You never see that fraud at the higher layer, right?
Right.
Yep. So that's the cleansed and validated. Now the conformed I like, because this is and Simon points this out. Make sure you watch the video, because like he goes into great great detail and has great examples on this. But he said the conformed layer is like the type of place where, let's say you work in a larger company, and each department, for whatever reason, has their own CRM system, right? They've all signed up for Dynamics, and they all have their own, entries for Coca-Cola. Well, okay, so they came in, right? CRMs 1 through 5 showed up through here. Well, at this layer, though, you only want to have one Coke, right? Like, there's no reason you don't want to have multiple records for Coca-Cola,
Right.
right? So you bring them together here. Kevin, I know you work with like often smaller companies. In a smaller organization, do you have an example of how you'd types of things you'd conform there?
Yeah, I've worked with some smaller and some medium size, right? I mean, the
Mhm.
more the medium size, this comes up a whole lot, right? The smaller companies tend to move, right? They won't keep multiple applications going. They're going to move and migrate their data, but then
Yep.
they introduce problems into it when they do that, right? Even the medium-sized companies have kind of what you're talking about, right? Somebody might be running Salesforce and then some, another department, Dynamics CRM.
Right.
And so this starts getting into like the bigger companies start trying to introduce um, master data management tools, right?
Yep.
To try to handle all that. And then you end up with rules coming in. And so now you have even a third source to try to pull those type of things in. Hopefully your MDM tool will end up keeping the keys and everything because it's going to report back to it and it makes it a little bit easier. Um, but it could be just even on a small company. The project I've been talking about that it's two actual systems and then Excel spreadsheets coming in, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being able to tell them that, hey, out of this Excel spreadsheet, here's names that are not matching, right? And then we have different names within even the two different systems that we got to map, and then we conform them to have one customer or one project name from there. So it still works out. You still got to introduce that layer, right? Whether it's a whole separate database is what this is showing, or it's just within that silver layer. I'd say smaller companies, it's more they tend to love going with Excel data more than others, right? So
Well, Excel is very easy to work with, and I don't
yeah,
begrudge them at all, right? Like,
right,
not every company has $1 million they spend on their data estate. So,
exactly.
you, you know, uh, I think companies need to invest the appropriate amount of money inside of their data areas. And I'm just going to say almost every company is insufficiently funding their data estate because they
Hmm.
don't really understand or appreciate what it takes to actually have the appropriate level data estate,
Yeah,
right?
they only allocated $12.
That's exactly it, right? Like
Yeah.
$12 is radically insufficient.
Hmm.
But real time streaming of infinite amounts of data is also an
And
incorrect ask for
exactly.
their what it is they're trying to do. And I would contend that everyone, if you're listening on this live stream, one of our biggest jobs is coaching our leaders on what they should be doing versus what they shouldn't, and setting the right level of expectation, right? Like, do you want to spend $1 million on this data project, or or what is our budget? If our budget is $12, that's fantastic. Give people $12. If it's not,
Hmm.
it's not, right?
Yeah. Cody just had a good comment that came in, which I think kind of emphasizes the point that Simon was getting to in his video and what you're building up to here, right? Is that he's seen third normal form enforcement in silver, even for the Excel data from bronze, and he's seen Data Vault implemented into silver, right? So he's seen two different things.
Yep. And
Is
and,
is
and
one
Simon
more right
mentions
than the
that
other?
this is a great layer for
Hmm.
Data Vault.
Hmm.
He does not like it himself. I'm hoping maybe he'll come around. I'm just a recent convert to saying I like the Data Vault at the silver layer. I think it brings In the same way that having a star schema in the gold layer, having data vault in the silver layer brings consistent. Did I lose you?
No, you're here. I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I was quiet.
No. For those who don't know, I lost my streaming PC. It hard crashed right as I was like kicking off with Martha. So I'm running on my main rig, but I'm now gun shy about that. But I like the data vault at the silver layer because, kind of along what Simon was saying, it brings consistency into understanding what the model should look like, and consistency and standardized processes for how you handle it. Right, like data vault's a legit thing. It's well known. It's well documented. There's all sorts of tools that can help you with it. So I really like that. Yeah, well, yeah. So, and Cody says he's struggling with data vault and silver, the self-called business vault, causing confusion on why we need gold. Now, that we're going to get into in just a second as we continue to have this conversation. Okay, but I like these two additional layers. Now, analytical models here. If we're talking Power BI, and frankly, if we're talking Tableau or you're talking any analytical front end tool, I think this should be the star schema. I don't think there's a lot of debate on that front that it should be the star schema. Like that just kind of is what it is, especially Power BI that has, I mean, the tabular engine is only the star schema, right? Like you can't not be the star schema. But I love this layer. And I would almost say this is like the reporting models or slash, not question mark, slash API. Right. So this is your one big tables. You know, your tables are designed for like easy reading and vomiting out data en masse. Versus your analytical models that are designed for rapid navigation. Right? These tables should have no joins that go with them. So it's just, hey, you're pulling it and you can handle scale compute options against it. But that means there's no joins. The data is greatly duplicated. And this is going to be your star schema for your tabular models.
Yeah, and it looks like Donald's pretty much agreeing with you there, right? Is, read from the star schema and then build that one big table in that layer, right? It's still within your gold area, right? But you may have a separate layer that, like you said, the APIs are going against, or certain business users may need that as one big table. Certain tools may work better with one big table than the star schema. We know Power BI works great with the star schema. I'm fully in agreement with you. Is even if I have to implement a different tool, I get to a layer that is still the star schema. I still think that makes the most sense. Even if you have to do something next to turn it into that one big table, I don't think it adds that much upshift onto it. Some people may disagree. Some people may have implemented it more that it costs a whole lot more in time to produce that. But to me, it still works well, because when you need to make that next change in what the business calls something, you have this isolation level of what you're going to. And that's one of the reasons for having, right? So we talk conceptually bronze, silver, gold, one or more things underneath that bronze, silver, gold, right? You have to come up with your architecture and your isolation levels as well.
Well, and I would like to point out that the thing that we're talking about here that doesn't work, or the piece of this that I think is the most brilliant part of this, why this doesn't work is as an architecture, is it's not an architecture. It's a process flow, right? It's how data moves through your environment and the things you use, the things you do to manage and build this out. Now, in the data lake space, because storage is so cheap, We're not having to manage disks and, oh man, our server's almost full. We can now easily continue to store all of these data at these very specific points and just say, you know what? I'm just going to have this data here. And I mean, it is fantastically inexpensive compared to what we had just a year, or I mean, just right before we went to data lakes, and if you're running on-prem servers, you're, it, it's so much easier, right? So this is just your process for how you manage and load your data. This is something that Simon didn't talk about,
Mhm.
but it dawned on me that you could use this. Oh my gosh, where's my little symbol here? Alex, if you're watching, this is for you. This could be your process in Power Query, right? Oops. You could have in your Power Query, you could have this part of your each Power Query where um, you do these bronze activities, where you first connect to the table or file, where you first validate your schemas, right, or validate your data. You could then have a section of transformations where you cleanse and validate it, where you can form and clean that data, right?
Mhm.
And then you could even go on to like that. This is where you model it, right? Like you only do these steps at the very end, right? You could group and cluster these things all together in all sorts of ways. And
Yeah, and that's why I think the statement, the arrow you put up top, right? It's a flow, it's a process, right?
mhm,
And so bronze, silver, gold is. I am going to interject the word architecture again, but it's an architectural pattern.
mhm,
It may not be the final architecture, right?
sure,
You still have to kind of think about starting with the pattern for this flow. And I fully agree. I think it's what a lot of people have been doing in Power Query already, and some people have just used a different name. And if you like a different name, that's fine,
yep.
right? But you may use folders in Power Query and then segment it out. So think back to some of the stuff that you've done, and then just take it at a conceptual level and continue forward.
And while it can be done in Power Query, it can also be done in Data Factory,
Mm-hmm.
right? It could be the stuff we do in Databricks, right? We could do that with Databricks. We could do it with literally anything we want. Oh, I don't have my.
But which one should I use? Right. That's always the question we hear. Right.
Hmm.
Which one do I use? How do I make that choice? Right. That's the hard part.
Yep. Yeah. You're not lying. It is the hard part. Are you using Power Query? And here's where uh, I would ask you to think about your environment and where you're working.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in finance and you've just started to work inside this space, or you're a citizen data engineer and you're just getting started with Power Query, awesome. Do that with Power Query.
Mm-hmm.
If your company uses Databricks, that's fine. Use Databricks, right? If you're starting with Fabric, totally do this with Fabric, right? Think about your data flows, your notebooks, your data factories, right? Like all this stuff, you can just go ahead and do, right?
Yeah, but what about, right? I mean, Power BI has always been kind of geared towards the business,
Mhm.
right? More or less started with the business, then more the technical side, and we're talking something that a lot of technical people kind of think about, right? So
Mhm.
for these, kind of tying back to what you did on Wednesday, right? These now citizen data engineers, where do they start, right? They probably don't
Right.
have access to Databricks, so do they eliminate that right away?
Right. Well, they might not have access to Databricks, but you know what they do have access to? They've got access to data flows,
Mm-hmm.
right? Both Gen 1 and Gen 2 data flows can be used inside of Fabric that leverage your Power Query to
Mm-hmm.
load that data, right? And now we're in a great position where these data flows are on the cusp of being a truly enterprise scale piece of technology, right? Uh, it is um, something that we're about to be able to have this be something that someone outside the business unit can stand up and support. So very excited about that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, yeah, you're spot on. That to me, it doesn't boil down to one answer, right? Which is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, kind of why I tried to phrase that question that way, because that's the question. That's the way I hear it a whole lot, right? It's almost like, tell me which one to use. And when we say you got to think about it for your company, for your particular um, area, right? Do you want the 48-ounce A38 Wagyu, or do you want the prime chuck? Do you want something below that, right?
Right.
And what is it that your team already knows? And your team may not include all the other IT people that you may not, right? Again, if you're this kind of new-ish to being a citizen data engineer, because you were, say, a citizen Power BI person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start with what you know. Start with what your team strengths are, right? Is it data flows? Do you have, do some people on your team have SQL knowledge, and like you have Fabric up here?
Mm-hmm.
You'll do something with SQL and Fabric. Are you more the pro dev, right? You have Snowflake, like you've just put up there, or you have Databricks, or you
Mm-hmm.
like the Python notebooks. Um, there's not just one answer, right? That's why
Yep.
you have to go back and look at it for your team.
Yep. And I mean, I think I will say, I think the reason Fabric has taken the approach that they have of having a lake house and data warehouse and data marts is because there are use cases for all of these types of technology where you might want to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And in your situation, you may find one more applicable than others. But regardless of the technology stack that you've chosen, you can you need to have a mechanism to be able to manage your data and flow it through your system. And
Mm-hmm.
having these types of concepts can really help you. Now, Kevin,
That,
what are the cons someone may encounter that may make them to say, "Oh, I don't want to do this type of a breakout"?
well, yeah, that's an interesting way that you phrased that question,
Mm-hmm.
because what what you're showing here, and the typical reaction that I think I get a lot of times, especially if you show it this way, right? You have six different, we'll call them stores, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe even six different databases. And the immediate reaction is, well, how much code do I need to write to do that? Right? How much processing time does it take to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which are valid questions, right?
Yep.
And it again, are you trying to get, the brisket? Are you trying to get the prime chuck? You trying to get the wagyu, right?
Yep.
Um, and you may want to look at it of, how much you want to put into it. You try not to say it depends, right? But having this as a concept, right? And if you still start out with the high level that I'm going to do a flow from bronze to silver to gold, the number of data stores that you put underneath it could grow over time, right? You don't immediately have to go, right. We pretty much know that you're going to start with bringing in the raw files, right?
Yep.
I think that has to be a given, and we've pointed out a couple reasons why you want to just kind of keep all of that to be able to look back for other type of problems. But maybe you don't have, maybe those two things are kind of combined in bronze,
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing the schema validated, or the schema validation moves into silver a little bit. It's you got to think about what is it that, with the amount of time, the amount of resources and everything. But if you start with the right process flow, you're going to be able to easily add on to it later.
Right. And like we said, these are conceptual. So maybe you have um, uh, a path that starts like this, where you have
Hmm.
this hardened path, and you have a flow that goes along these lines.
Yeah.
But maybe you do this sometimes instead, where you go straight from that conform to that modeling or API layer, right? Right? Like maybe
Yeah.
that's something that you do. And heck, maybe do this, right? If you're trying to get these things out as fast as possible, maybe you skip over the silver and gold because you have the data coming in, you validated the schema wise, and that's all you're trying to do because this is your real time streaming, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, with where you're kind of showing it, the thing we talked about there is you're getting that to the one big table in that layer, right?
Yep.
That may be perfectly fine. And you're putting it out there, but then you're going to come back, say later on, and whatever that raw data was, let's say you do end up moving it to the silver layer and things like that, then you eliminate that bottom arrow that you put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're not changing what that one big table's definition looks like in that last store, right? So even though whoever the consumer is seeing the exact same thing, they don't know what process you took it through to get there. And so
Yep.
you could skip over the process and then come back later and add the right process in. And again, they're paying the $12 so that they get their one big table quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then over time, you keep investing $12 more every month, and you pay the full amount to get it. It get the quality of that data, the value of it gets better and better month over month. That iterative process, right? But they have to accept that we may start out that the first part of it, um, hopefully again is if you're in a bank, don't get it all kind of lined out better first. But some people want to get things that are kind of directionally accurate rather than 100% accurate at first.
Yeah. And Kevin, you're spot on. You can do these big steps. I think the big challenge that we need to make sure that we're articulating to our leaders is by doing these things, we're inherently building out technical debt.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this technical debt is something that we can like be aware of, know about, and make a business decision that yes, we are going to take on this technical debt. Yes, for the sake of efficiency and delivery, we're going to move this item forward with these technical debt components. Um,
Yep.
but that's where it starts to become important for you to track those decisions and
I
those
was just about to
commitments.
say the same thing. As soon as you make that technical that decision and you're adding that debt, get it on your project board, get it on your Jira or your Azure DevOps, get something out there, whichever way that you do it, that says, here's our technical debt. So that 2 years from now, when somebody says, why is this doing that? And you go, we've had this for 2 years. And it's when we made that decision, we said we're going around it and we'll come back and rebuild it, but we never allocated the time for
And, and,
it.
and people should remember the reason that we call it technical debt is that interest accrues at
Mm-hmm.
a non-linear rate, and it is unlike regular debt. It's impossible to see what technical debt is, the impact and the cost of it, right?
Yeah.
And Chewy asks a good question here. He says, "Is there ever conscious technical debt that we engage in?" I would
I,
say yes. I'll
I,
also say that there's what he's saying is like when we take on technical debt that we're just not aware of, like we do it by inadvertently or
mm-hmm.
like we think it's a good idea to try this, but then all of a sudden it comes along like, oh crap, we just did this and we've now lost all of our raw files because we in our processing
Mm-hmm.
we do validation and we kick out bad files and we send an alert and that's it. Like we delete it because we didn't think it was useful. Crap, we need to enhance our process, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's that technical debt that are made from, we could almost call them mistakes or something like that. But
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I think from VPs and above, they make decisions all the time that
Mhm.
are conscious decisions to add technical debt, even though they're not saying it that way,
Yep.
right? But their statement is, which goes a little bit back to the video we started with, I just need something quickly. I need this, can't we just go around that process? Right. And when they say that should, trigger you to say, okay, I'm putting in a technical debt user story for the future to get this take back out. So, I think it does have to be documented. Like we said, this decision was made. I'm never saying it's the wrong decision because somebody might need something, very quickly, but
Yep.
it's, you got to be able to work on it later on.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're going to get into our last topic here, which is how do we inside of our organizations understand this, but then potentially extend upon this? I mentioned this uh, a few weeks or in another live stream. Actually, I don't know how long ago it was. And I think this gets into addressing Cody's question about like the bronze or the business layer and the silver space. Is that this is where we start to have domain specific or business specific
Mm-hmm.
extensions, right? Now, I've even seen raw layer business extensions, right? Like, okay, hey, let's say you're going to load some information in, and maybe it's just a trial. Maybe you're just testing it out, or maybe it's of lower quality or lower value, but you want to follow good practices, right? So we have a domain specific bronze layer that goes on to like flow in and combine and create um, uh, well, and you can actually have it flow into like a conformed silver layer, or that can come from that enterprise, right? That
Mm-hmm.
stuff can come into that business domain, right? Um, but these things don't eliminate the need for the downstream objects as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still end up needing um, these downstream capabilities to have a model data, to potentially have a reporting data, right? Now, you may obscure some of the steps in your load processes, like we kind of described here, but
Mm-hmm.
the business layers or those domain layers are going to need that as well.
Yeah. And even on that proof of concept or whatever, is in your little lower part,
Mm-hmm.
again, if you start by trying to put as much of that in as possible, when you fold it into your bigger layer up top, it's just going to be a little bit easier, you know?
Yep.
Um, and I always look at it, maybe it's a 10% upshift on the amount of time that your developers are going to take to do it or whatever, but take that time early on because it later on it's a 50 or percent or higher upshift to do it.
Yes.
So I want to make sure we did miss one. Donald had a question in here, right? How does third normal form fit in? He uses it only as needed. So I think
Yeah,
that's fine. You use it only where it's needed. But I kind of think it goes back to some of the points Cody was making earlier as well, right? Is that's probably going to land inside your silver zone if that's the actual pattern you want to implement, right? And I think Cody was saying he saw a lot of different, he or she, they saw a lot of different type of things, right? So, but yeah, I could see third normal form right there. Yes, as Donald just put out there, it's the Inman versus Kimball argument, but I still think if those two are much closer aligned, right, than they have been in the past. And yeah, when you read a lot of things actually from Databricks, there's no question about it. Inman is very much tied into the Databricks people, right? And he wrote a lot of other books on it and everything. So there's some of these concepts do come from Inman, and if people want to research that, go ahead and research it. But Kimball is pretty much the winner from, especially at the gold layer, the dimensional
Mhm.
modeling and everything else. But I think you're going to get at silver layer the concepts of, Inman, the concepts of data vault, right? And again, which one fits for your team, right?
Yep. And your use cases. So,
Yes.
and this kind of goes back to the start of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't like the names bronze, silver, and gold, and I would love it if we could change these names to be something more meaningful. Conceptually, if this starts to resonate in the process for how we move data through our system and how we work with data, and we could get more people understanding, what does it mean to work with bronze data? What would you do in bronze data that you wouldn't do inside of gold, or that you wouldn't do inside of silver, right? Understanding that this is just a flow of information, I think that I think that enriches the data culture of the world if we can get there. So if we have to keep calling it bronze, silver, okay, but if not,
well, but if it's within your company, right, and they I don't know, stage, curate it, and business or something, I don't know, whatever, pick 3 words, right?
yep,
Dog, cat, squirrel, right? Um, the important part of it is that within your company and the teams that you're interacting with, they understand what it means when we're talking to them, dog, cat, squirrel.
I
Right?
really, if you have a department in Germany, you 100% have to use this.
Yeah.
Have
So
you
I
ever
mean,
heard a German try to pronounce squirrel?
no, I don't think I
Oh my gosh.
have.
There are
I got it.
YouTube videos of people from Germany trying to pronounce squirrel. It is the most hilarious thing in the world. This 100% needs to become how we name
Yeah.
our ETL layers going forward.
Right. It's still just your data movement process, and it gives a you know vocabulary, a taxonomy to have a conversation with everybody else in your company that just says, right, you typically want them to go to the squirrel layer, and somebody says that doesn't have what I need, only the dog layer has it. They understand when they're going there what form that's in, that they might have to do a little bit more work, right? I think the reason that we try to talk about it from an industry, right, or outside of our own companies and continue to use bronze, silver, gold is because across these communities, those are becoming common words,
Yeah.
right? And so we could get our points across a whole lot easier because if we just did a whole video and we started out calling this dog, cat, squirrel, people
We
would
have
be
to
lost.
redefine it and
Yeah,
explain what we mean by squirrel, right?
yeah, yeah. So, get the communication down with everybody so that it's simpler, right? And
Although,
yes,
wouldn't it be amazing if 10 years we look back on dog, cat, squirrel architecture and like Kevin Arnold came up with the dog, cat, squirrel architecture or data flow processing standards and on October 27th, 2023.
Boy, if that's all it takes to solve the world problems, I'm
You're in.
in.
Oh, awesome. Well, this is a fantastic video by Simon over at Advancing Analytics. I'm gonna
Mhm.
put it in the chat one more time so we don't. Make sure you go out and watch this. Hit Simon up. Thank him for this. This is a great conversation. He's much funnier than we are, so it's a much better use of your time. So go over there and listen to that. And he just does a great job. So, any other parting words before we head out, Kevin?
No, everybody have a great Halloween coming up.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I I think we got one more before the time shift happens for anybody watching us.
Oh, is that
Um,
next week?
it's going to be a week from Saturday. It's on like the 5th of November, I think.
Okay, so
So
yes.
we'll have one more Friday. We be good. There'll be no change, and then we'll be changed some right after that, but getting people kind of prepared for it if they're overseas.
Well, good shout out.
Or in the states that don't change times.
Those rogue
That's so
states.
confusing. That's so confusing.
All right. Well,
Anyway.
with that, everyone have a great weekend. We will see you next week. Oh, next week we're going to be talking about why you should never ever use a DAX calculator column. All right. And I don't want to hear about anyone coming in and saying I need DAX columns. Done with it.
Do I get to play devil's advocate on this?
Oh, if you want.
Oh, it sounds like fun.
See you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.